Did he really?
Welcome to the Select Board. Welcome to the Select Board meeting Tuesday, February 18th, 2025. Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman,
Thank you, Mr.
doesn't
Chairman.
matter today.
Tonight's meeting of the Plymouth Select Board is happening in a hybrid format. Members of the board are joining us here in person at the 1820 courtroom at Town Hall. A member of the board joining us virtually over the Zoom webinar platform. Members of the public may join us here in person at the 1820 courtroom at Town Hall, or they may join us over the Zoom webinar platform, the login information for which is included on the agenda that is posted on the town website. Or members of the public that wish to observe the meeting may watch us on Comcast Channel 9 or Verizon Channel 47. Members of the public are also reminded any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of the Select Board after notifying the chair, subject to reasonable requirements of the chair, so as not to interfere with the conduct of the meeting. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any recordings. The only recording we are aware of at present is the recording being done by the local scene for the Comcast and YouTube broadcast. Mr. Chairman, at this time, I would read the executive session language.
Please.
The Select Board will hold an executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Clause 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. This is in relation to the so-called full sale property located at what was 277 Taylor Ave and St. Charles Avenue. The specific parcel IDs are listed on our agenda. I would make a motion that we enter into executive session at this time.
Motion by Mr. Canty, second by Mr. Blutzer. Discussion? Mr. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Blutzer?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney? Yes. And myself, yes. Unanimous. Thank you. The board will be returning back to open session about 6 p.m. Thank you. Welcome back to the Select Board meeting of February 18th. Please join the board in a pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first order is administrative notes. And on number 1, will just be the meeting minutes from February 3rd, 2025. Just February 3rd.
Mr. Chairman, unless my colleagues have other questions, I would move that we approve administrative notes 1 through 6 as a group, noting that the minutes of 2:4 and 2:11 are not included.
Okay,
Yep.
I have a motion by Mr. Canty. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Canty, second by Mr. Bletzer. Discussion? Mr. Golden?
Yeah.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
And Mr. Bletzer?
Yes.
Unanimous. We have a, first order on the agenda is a memorial application. Judge White Memorial Bench. Any questions on the request?
Is Adrian White the
Yes,
applicant?
right there.
Hi.
Good evening, welcome.
Thank
Wanted
you.
to say a few words about the application and about,
Sure about my dad?
yes, absolutely.
so-
Thank you.
So George A. White was a lifelong Plymouthian. He grew up on the second floor of 158 Water Street, the former Bluebird Cafe, which became the Plymouth 1620 restaurant, owned by the White family, established in 1923. He graduated from Suffolk Law School in 1941. After serving in the United States Navy during World War II, he went on to be a lawyer with his private practice located at 1 Main Street. Over the years, he served as selectman, town moderator, town council, public defender, assistant district attorney, and ending his final years of public service as the Honorable Judge George A. White, Justice of the 3rd District Court, at which time it was located in this very building. My family is asking to place a memorial bench on the town property in front of 158 Water Street, formerly the 1620 restaurant, where he grew up and spent many days holding court. We thank you for your time and consideration.
Any questions for Adrian? Mr. Mahoney and Mr. Bletzer, and then Mr. Golden.
Adrian, this request has gone in front of the Memorials Advisory Committee.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Is this request has gone in front of the Memorials Advisory Committee already?
Yes, it was voted unanimously, yep.
Okay. And what years did your father serve on the Select Board?
So I have that.
4 years.
48 to 52.
48 to 52. Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Adrian.
Hi.
Charlie Bletzer. I only have one question, is what took so long to do this for Judge
I tried
White?
to do this a few years ago and it
Yeah.
got lost, so, yeah.
So, I started working in Plymouth and wasn't until '97, but, so I never worked with your father, but I know a lot of people that did. He was a legend, and
Yeah.
the employees loved him. He was a good man. I see Alfred out there.
Yeah, thank you.
He was a good man. And the restaurant, the 1620 restaurant, was another a landmark. So I'm glad you're doing this. He deserved it. He was, like I say, he was a great man. He was he worked in public service before he get into the court system, and so he deserves this.
Thank you.
My
for
question is,
saying that.
where do you want to put this bench? Where on the waterfront?
So right at where the restaurant was, that town-owned land, there's 2 benches. I spoke to Nick at
Yeah, there's two
Public
wooden
Works.
benches, so you want to put one in there?
In the middle, yeah.
That would be perfect.
Yeah.
That's a perfect spot,
Oh, good.
yeah. So, anyway,
Thank you.
so I'm very supportive of this.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mahoney asked what I plan to ask, but I know that the chair of the Memorial Advisory Committee is in the room. Is there any additional information that she would like to share with us regarding their discussions?
I didn't really understand what he said.
He's asking the chair of the Memorials Committee if she wanted to add anything. Welcome.
Thank you. I don't think there's anything else to add. I think you've covered it. We voted unanimously for this, so they have our full support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sierra.
Thank you.
And I just want to say that I remember my childhood growing up and delivering veggies over there and going down the ramp on the stairs and him coming home for lunch. And every once in a while he'd catch me and says, "Shut the door, the flies are going to come in." It's okay, I got to get the produce. A lot of good memories there, a lot of good people, and he definitely deserved it. He had a reputation around our town as a very fair person and a fair judge. I never heard anybody say anything different, so.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Canty?
At this time, I would unless my colleagues have other questions, I would make a motion to approve the application for the Judge George White Memorial Bench as presented.
I'll make a second on that motion.
Motion by Mr. Canty, second by Mr. Blitzer. Discussion? Mr. Canty?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would point out, just for the record, George White does have a plaque at the Terry Murray Courthouse on the third floor. It's relatively small. It's on state property, though, obviously being a functioning courthouse. So I think even though we have generally a policy, you only get one, other than some of our Pilgrim forefathers, you only get one memorial within the community. I think the fact that that one's on state land, and it makes sense because he was a judge at the predecessor to that building. I'm still in support of giving him based on the fact that he served both in that role as well as many positions within our community here. I think it's still worthwhile to give him a bench as requested.
Any other comments? Mr. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Blitzer?
Yes.
And myself, yes, unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to have a municipal aggregation update presentation by Mike Cahill and Rep. Senator Michelle Badger is here also. And I just want to point out that the whole state delegation has been working on this for a couple weeks. And so has the town. And we have to see what Mike has to say first and see if we can get some answers here. Thank you. Welcome, Mike.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Michael Cahill. I'm the Climate Resiliency and Sustainability Planner for the town. I'm here tonight to talk about our aggregation plan and a little bit about energy rates in town. Not sure this is working. So both municipal energy usage and the municipal aggregation plan fall within the climate action adaptation plan. Therefore, it falls underneath my purview as the climate resiliency and sustainability planner for the town. Next slide, please, Jade. Thank you. So electricity bills are really broken down into two pieces. There's supply rates and there's delivery rates. Supply rates are relatively easy to comprehend. It's really just your energy usage times the market rate. So when it comes to market rate for electricity, you really have three options in the town of Plymouth. There is the the aggregation plan, which is the town-sanctioned electricity plan. There's also Eversource basic rate, and additionally, you could go with a third party as well. So this is your energy usage times that rate, and that gives you your supply rate. The delivery side is a little bit more difficult to comprehend. So this is made up of three factors: transmission costs, public policy costs, and distribution operations and service costs. So this is all generated by Eversource. All these funds are used to either improve the grid, keep in line with policies on the state level, or to pay for operations and service to maintain that grid. It's important to note that the supply rates are the only side that we as the municipality have any control over. On the delivery side, all of those rates are dictated, are presented to DPU, the Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities, and approved. It's not working either. So into supply rates for aggregation. So our aggregation rate is our Plymouth Community Power Supply Program. This was created in 2017. And for those of you that aren't familiar with aggregation, basically the way the aggregation works is as a town, we sanction a plan. We have group purchasing power. Everyone that is a resident in town, both residential and small businesses, can opt into our plan. And because we're purchasing as a group, we're improving our purchasing power, and we're able to provide cheaper electricity rates for our residents and small businesses. As of our last recent read, we had 23,808 residential and small businesses signed up for our plan. Now, like I mentioned earlier, you have the choice to be on basic electricity or to come over to our plan. Since the town's plan has been in place since 2017, we've been able to drive down the cost of the supply costs for electricity and provide our residents with $46 million in cost savings over that 7-year period. Broken down with our 23,808 meters in town, it's roughly a cost savings of $2,000 per household over that time frame. Next slide. Now, our most recent plan that we have in place was signed into place in October of 2023, and it will run until October of 2025. That rate is 14.813 cents per kilowatt hour. It's important to note that that plan is now all 100% renewable. Like I mentioned earlier, you also have the option to go on basic. That basic rate will change twice a year, on February 1st and on August 1st. The new rate for Eversource, their summer rates, was just released and was kicked in on February 1st. That new rate is 13.241 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, it's important to note that the Eversource basic rate is currently cheaper than our aggregation rate. We try to provide cost savings and a competitive electrical supply for our residents, although it's important to know you can always leave our plan at any time without penalty and always come back on the town's plan at any time without penalty. Currently, until October 21st, that Eversource basic rate will stay at 13.241 cents per kilowatt hour, and once our plan gets to October 2025, we will sign a new contract which will be in place for 2 to 3 years, depending on how long we deem that service contract period to last. Next slide, please. Now, there are 199 aggregation plans in Massachusetts, serving all the 199 municipalities. I collected data from 18 surrounding communities to assess the cost of their aggregation plan compared to ours. Our aggregation plan is currently 0.3 cents cheaper on average than the surrounding 18 communities. Therefore, although our rate is higher than Eversource Basic, we are competitive based on surrounding aggregation plans in the state. Next slide, please. So the average electricity usage per residential property in Plymouth is 600 kilowatt hours per month. Over the time period, that difference between basic right now of 13.2 cents per kilowatt hour to our plan of 14.8 cents per kilowatt hour comes out to a cost difference of $9.3 per bill and an annual cost of $113.16 cents per year. And once again, it's important to note anyone can leave our plan at any time without penalty, go over to Eversource Basic, and then return to our plan at any time without penalty. One thing to note, though, Third-party plans is an option as well. You could work with a private company to get electricity prices. We always note that make sure that you read the fine print in that contract to make sure that there's no steep rate price increases after a time period, and that you're not locked in and there's no early termination fee or any earlier commitments. So we always say make sure you read the fine print when it comes to third-party plans. Now over to delivery charges. Like I mentioned, this is all approved by Mass Department of Public Utilities. Mr. Chairman noted earlier that we have Michelle Badger here, a Massachusetts representative. Earlier this week, actually, sorry, on Friday, there was a letter that was sent over to the Department of Public Utilities looking at them to reevaluate energy prices. That was signed by, I believe, 80 legislators in Massachusetts. So once again, these charges are operating, maintaining, and upgrading electrical transmission and distribution systems in Massachusetts, consumer services, and state and federally mandated charges to fund financial assistance, energy efficiency, and renewable energy programs. Once again, these rates will change twice a year, on January 1st and July 1st, and all of these changes are approved by the Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities. Next slide, please. The way that Eversource breaks down their delivery charges is by region. In the Massachusetts each region, there are four different rates. We fall within the South Shore rate. If you go to the Eversource website, you can actually see all of the charges that they have tacked onto those delivery rates, and you can see where that money is going. Next slide, please. And then finally, some tips to save on the electricity bill. Plymouth is currently working with Eversource to provide a turnkey solution here in town. For residents that fall within these income thresholds on the right-hand side, you could be eligible for free weatherization, free air source heat pumps, and energy efficiency systems, and free project management solutions. We've discussed Eversource was sharing this information more relevant, more prevalently. So if it's something that the board would be interested, I'd be more than happy to work with Eversource to provide information on another session showing residents how to go through this program and the benefits that are available to you if you fall within these income thresholds. Additionally, I should note too that even if you don't fall within these thresholds, you could have rebates available for you when it comes to weatherization and heat pumps also. And then finally, another solution would be to implement alternative energy sources. Solar, I think, is probably the one that we're all most familiar with. And at that point, I would also advise people that the Mass Clean Energy Center, they have a step-by-step guide for installing solar on your house. And if anyone has any questions on that, they can definitely stop into the Department of Energy and Environment where I work, and I can share some resources that are available to the public. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Mr. Canty?
Thank you, Mike. So you mentioned you can enter and exit the aggregation program at any time. What is sort of the time frame for someone to do that? So say someone woke up tomorrow at the crack of dawn and decided, I'm going to leave the municipal aggregation program today. When would that take effect? And then if in 3-6 months, whenever they decide they'd like to get back on board, what's the time frame to get back on board after you've left?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Depending on where they opt out in the billing cycle, it can take between 1 to 2 months to get off the plan. But no other hidden fees or anything like that. It's just a time frame to leave that the Eversource bill and get back onto the aggregation or vice versa.
Okay, it's 1 to 2 months either way, either if you're entering or exiting?
Correct, yep,
Okay.
just depending on where you fall in the billing cycle when you opt out.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? John?
Mike, just looking over the memo you put together for us here, so our current rate is going to expire in October of this year.
Correct.
So you're on the verge of entering a negotiation phase for a next agreement for the community. How long are they 1, 2, 3-year agreements? How long do they go for?
They vary. This current contract is 2, the previous one was 3.
Okay. The other thing is that you're differentiating here. You got supply costs, and then the number 2 is delivery charges. And, you know, you articulate here that it says on the local level we have no control over the delivery charges. Is that Is that what the shock and awe was a couple weeks ago when people opened up their bill? Obviously, you know, in today's world, you've got the internet out there, and you know, there's a lot of, you know, unhappy people out there with respect to this, and it's predominantly the delivery charges.
Correct. So that new delivery charge went into place on January 1st. So those new charges just showed up on the last bill that was sent out February 1st, which is why, you know, there was that steep increase just this time of year. So once again, those rates will change twice a year, and those new rates will go into place July 1st.
So do you know what percentage they went up, or is this out of your purview?
I do not know. That is information that we would have to reach out to Eversource or DPU to get information on.
And that's something that the state delegation or the governor and her staff has to work on with respect to improving that or getting a better rate?
Correct. So like I mentioned earlier, the utilities basically go to DPU, Department of Public Utilities, with the increases that they would like to see in justification. DPU reviews those changes, and then they will approve those changes. So state does have oversight over those increases in delivery charges.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Who actually appoints the DPU? Who do they answer to?
That might be more of a question for the state rep in the room.
Sure. These are the questions people
It's
are
all
asking.
good. Just remember, it's only like day 49, so I'm still like
All right.
getting everything figured out. But my understanding, and we've had several conversations with DPU, Eversource, you know, we've just started talking with the AG's office, with our state auditor, and we're going at it. And when I say we, I mean State Rep Lenatra, myself, and State Rep Mark Sylvia, who many of you know as he was a former town manager here. And so we've really been trying every angle to get to this. And one of the questions we actually just asked DPU today was, what is the percentage of increase that each of the line items have gone up by? Because what we're looking for is, all right, we know that part of the biggest issue is not what it costs for the actual energy, it's that fee that it takes to get from point A to point B in your house to turn that light switch on, to do whatever it is you're trying to do. And so we know that part of it has to do with a lot of the wonderful, and I've had somebody send us an email or a Facebook message today that said it's a notable cause, which is that green energy piece, which we all want to do better at, but that's actually a big piece of what has driven up a lot of our costs, because we need the infrastructure. Then you have I know no one likes to hear it, but COVID is also seen as a driver. Because of the fact that there was a lot of work that was planned to be done and couldn't be done during COVID, and then the supply chain and all of that. So that has kind of, you know, leveled up and up and up. And then the other piece you have is the fact that for years we didn't put any resources into, or I shouldn't say resources, we didn't invest into our infrastructure, and now we're making that investment in our infrastructure. We're diversifying it. You know, there's the hydroelectric power, we've got solar, we have wind currently, and that's one thing too to mention that will help bring down the fees, is as we get more and more of the wind, there's only one turbine operating out in the ocean right now. There's plenty of, is it 18 bases? I can't remember how many bases they have out there, but there is only one that's operating right now, and once we get that up and running, that's going to continually help bringing down the fees because it costs less to produce that energy. It's free. But yeah, so we've got so to answer your question, from what we can understand, there are 3 people on the DPU. We are asking a lot of questions about how they are selected, in that 2 of them are environmental lawyers, and so what's the piece behind that? So there's a lot of questions that we've been asking about DPU, and we are working on a website, and as soon as we have a website, we will get the information up there. But right now we have a PowerPoint presentation on Facebook, Blue Sky, Instagram. I don't know if I put it on my TikTok, but I know we have a video about it. But we're trying to get the word out to as many people as we can that, we're trying to help. And I know that the county has just started conversations with you all, hopefully, to drive down the prices. So I think with all of us going at this in different directions, we have to find a solution. We signed on to letters and are, just trying to do what we can to get the word out there. I think I answered your question.
Thank you. I think if anything on the actual bills itself, it should say how much is going to green energy, how much is going to this, how much is going for the actual infrastructure, so people have an idea. If you said to me that my transmission fee or delivery fee went up 50% because we have green energy, then it's really not efficient.
Yeah.
It's efficient as far as clean goes to one point, but now you're hearing it's hurting the whales. One thing I did take away from the ISO tour was we're not going to windmill or solar ourselves out of this. The state and the country has to look at where we're going to get our energy, especially the South Shore. So, 10 years from now or even longer or less, there's going to be different people sitting here and asking, how does this happen? So we need to reevaluate in our own town, where we just finished up a nuclear power plant. I haven't got briefed on all that yet, but they have mini power plants all over Europe. And, that is a clean form of energy, as long as you can use up the waste, the nuclear rods or whatever they might be. I don't even know what runs those plants, but it's something that we shouldn't just look the other way. In a community, I asked the guy from the NRA when I was down there, the energy guy there. What is it?
Yeah.
NRC?
Yeah, NRC, that's it. I said to him, with us shutting down all our power plants and so what, where are we going to get all this energy? Everything's electric, all electric cars, all the new building codes coming very soon, all green. Where's the electricity going to come from? I mean, it's something to think about. He said, that's a good question. That was his answer to me. So, that being said, I am the town's rep on the county, and I'm also on the E-board now. So I reached out to them, and within 2 weeks, they've started working with all the communities in Plymouth County. I believe there's 19 communities in the county that aren't in a plan. 3 of those are out because they have their own power plants. Middleborough, I think it's Hull. Is it Braintree? That's the third one. Which is another question I have for Mr. Cahill. These communities that do that, I mean, I remember Dr. Rushforth years ago brought it up, and he was very passionate about having our own power station or managing our own power. So is that something is that like pie in the sky, or, I mean, how do they say Middleborough's electricity is a lot cheaper than ours? Is that true?
Yeah, so there are 41 municipal light plants in the state servicing 50 communities. Braintree, Hingham, Middleborough, those are the closest ones to us. The last municipal light plant that was established was back in 1928, and I believe it was Mansfield. So the reason for that is the high costs for startups. So to get that plant going, it would require a significant investment from the town in the infrastructure in place to be able to provide electricity to the homes. Additionally, doing some research, I've looked at some of the municipalities and how many resources would have to be devoted towards upkeep and staffing. All of those departments have around 20 staff members or so that work there. To provide energy to those communities. So not only is there a significant upfront cost, but the maintenance and the upkeep is significant as well. So, which is why it hasn't been done since 1928.
Okay. Well, I just have to ask the question when I,
Sure.
you hear it out there, right? So that brings us down to, I think it's 16 communities that are in Plymouth County that aren't on a plan, and they're actively working to see which communities would want to work together, and and that was, you also mentioned that, and David also, to reach out to them. So they're moving very quickly on that. So
Yeah, and the more purchasing power we have, theoretically, the lower we can drive down supply costs.
and then it brings us to my favorite question is the switch yard still at the plant down there, and that's been purchased by Eversource. And, you'd ask yourself, why would they purchase a switch yard with no electricity there? So could be something coming. If it is, I hope they would share it with our community first. And, but if not, we have a stake in the fire. It opened our eyes. But people want an answer, and this wasn't a fluff show for me. This isn't the end of it for us. I mean, I know there's a petition out there, regardless of what people might say on Facebook that I don't know, but I'm very much aware of that. And, that's going one way. Ms. Badger and the gang's working, on the state level. So, that being said.
Can I just answer the percentage question? We actually learned something today that goes to the percentage of what goes to your bill.
Right.
That is something that the legislature actually asked, I believe, DPU to do. I don't know if it was last session or the session before, and it just hasn't been followed through. So we're going to try to see what we can do and read the language, whether it instructed or if it just kind of made the suggestion to, because it does make a lot of sense and would clarify a lot of the confusion that's coming from the fees.
And another thing to bring up while we're just talking, this is it for me, is we've had some tech companies that have been inquiring in Plymouth. And one of the first things we're finding out, one of the first questions is, how do I power my I'm going to say factory, it's not a factory, but my building. And you know what? We can't do it. How sad is that? So there's a lot to look at here. It opened our eyes. And like I say, I'm going to keep working on it regardless. And I'm not going to give up. But anything that should change or anything we can do as a town, please let us know. I'll keep you up to date on the county, and I know they're in touch with you all because they gave them all your cards, and they told me that they're in touch with you. So, but we have to do something. Mr. Bletzer?
I just want to say one thing, that I'm very sympathetic of what's going on, and we have to come up with a solution, because my bill was, for gas and electric, was $1,097 this month. So we need to do something. It's getting bad. So anyway, whatever you can do, thanks.
Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the process of understanding how these fees have increased is helpful for the community, but it doesn't lessen the impact of these quickly increasing bills. And I don't want to make Mike the bearer of bad news. So perhaps he or Representative Badger can answer. With our aggregation deal being up in October, do we anticipate that the cost for energy is going to increase when we enter our new negotiation?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Obviously, the energy market is variable. It changes, month to month, if not week to week. So it's difficult to predict external factors that could be out there that could change the market rate for electricity. The reason why Eversource Basic has dropped so much is Eversource, basically, they purchase electricity at 2 points during the year, and they offset that to reduce their risk. So basically, in November, when they purchased their electricity rates for this upcoming 6 months, it was extremely cheap, which allowed them to drive down their supply costs. Will that remain in place for the upcoming months as we go through negotiations? I can't say what the market's going to do, but something that we're thinking about as we're starting to have these contract negotiations, and we're definitely going to do all that we can to provide a competitive rate for our residents.
Let me rephrase that, Mike. Has the municipal aggregate rate ever dropped?
Sorry, can you repeat the end there? Has it ever?
Has the municipal aggregate rate that the town enjoys ever dropped?
So once a contract is signed, it wouldn't drop. But the previous rate before this, 14.8 cents per kilowatt hour, was 9.07, I believe. And that increased over the 3-year period from when that contract was first signed to when we signed the new contract. That was just a natural fluctuation in the market price. So energy has gone up, significantly since 2017. And it's difficult to predict how it's going to change over the next, 3 to 5 years as well.
I mean, I think it's safe to assume that the cost of electricity is not going to go down. So, I think, the DPU commission is, as Ms. Badger stated, a 3-member commission. They're appointed by the Secretary of the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, who was ultimately appointed by the governor. So my hope is that the legislative delegation will continue to hammer away at this, not just with the DPU, but with the governor's office, because ultimately they're responsible to her. And the folks up on Beacon Hill need to offer some relief to the people of Plymouth and other communities that are suffering because of this.
And just to, so
Thank you.
the governor did send a letter, and we were in contact with them as well. The governor sent a letter. I don't know why I'm staring at this like you can see my eye contact with you. Sorry. The governor did send a letter on, what day is it? Today is Tuesday. I think she sent it yesterday, just making everybody aware of that it's unacceptable. So hopefully that's starting a larger conversation, because it's unacceptable. It really is. People are going to start losing their homes. We've already heard people say that once you don't have to have heat, people's heat then is going to be turned off. And we've had a really cold winter. If that cold winter continues into a cold spring, people are going to get sick, could die. Like, there's so many consequences to this that it's scary. And so we will, don't worry, our delegation is on top of it, as well as I think everybody else in the State House. This needs to be a solution, and we need to have some relief for consumers.
Thank you.
And if I could just add one final piece.
Please.
As residents struggle, to pay their electricity bills, I would urge you to stop in our department. I can share resources for weatherization. Although it's not a big difference, it could make a small difference in bills to help residents cope through the increasing costs. So please use all the resources that we have in the Department of Energy and Environment.
And now that you bring that up, I did talk with Senator Fernandez, and he would like to do a workshop at the library for Mass Save. So maybe you could all reach out to him, Ms. Badger also, and do your thing up at the library for the citizens that want to get involved or learn more about Mass Save.
Yeah, and Kathy or Representative Lenatra and I are working on hopefully an event that will be with DPU and Eversource, to have them come here and talk about what's the drivers behind the fees, as well as the solutions to kind of lowering that cost, because they are looking at, DPU did put out a request for information, and since I wasn't in my position until January 1st, they sent it out in the middle of December, and we did reply. We only found out because we were being a squeaky wheel, and it was the day that they were like, this is when everything is due. And so we answered the question. And so they are looking at ways to do moderate income and what that means. And so that should be available to all of us by, I think, at some point in April. But we are hoping to do something in March here in Plymouth. We're working with to put together a program and I think I've mentioned this to all of you. I was surprised to hear that many of these programs, with Mass Save included, DPU, Eversource, have been in Boston, north of Boston, west of Boston, have been doing these information sessions, these forums that, Senator Fernandez and myself have talked about, but they never came to the South Shore, the South Coast, or the Cape. And so this is what we're hoping to tell them, like, you have to come down here, you need to do these, because we have the same questions, and quite frankly, it's unacceptable that they haven't come down here. So we've got another call tomorrow, which I'm gonna make sure they understand that.
Okay. And, it's nice to get a little cheaper on the electric rate, but it's no good saving money on the left side when the right side's doubling. I mean, if anything, you have to look at that, and I know they're using an answer for infrastructure and all that, but I'm going to tell you just what the people are telling me. The CEO of Eversource got $16 million, and then he got an $8 million bonus because of record profits. So I think that says it all right there in one sentence.
Yeah, that's another question we have out to DPU, and I'm hoping we'll ask Eversource. The question is, where does that come from? And if it supposedly isn't paid by the ratepayers, show us where it comes from, because that's unacceptable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so I want to thank you all for presenting this, and let's all stay in the loop and not let this go, because we have to get some answers. And, something definitely has to be done with the transmission costs. They did deregulation, maybe it's time to dust that novel off and see what really went on that night. So, I'm sure they wouldn't want to hear that, but, if I was sitting up there, that's what I would be asking, because apparently this is not working for anybody. So, any other questions or comments from the board? Mr. Mahoney?
Michelle, what did you say, 49 days?
Yes, tomorrow's 50.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
So, if you could just put one quick little item on your to-do list. And late last summer, early fall, I ran into the governor.
Yep.
And I asked her if she ever came out and would sit down with local forms of government, especially their executive board, so that we could have, an open discussion about certain things that the state mandates that might be working for communities and might not be working for communities. And I can tell you about 8 years ago, Charlie Baker came out and sat down with the board at the time for about an hour. And I would love to replicate that with Governor Healy. I communicated that with her. She introduced me at the time to the individual that would facilitate that.
Okay.
I followed through via telephone and email.
Yep.
I then took that and I passed that along with the chairman's permission to our town manager, and that has been in limbo for, I would say, 3 to 5 months.
Okay.
So no hurry. It is not to beat her up over any particular issue. It is just to allow us to maybe voice our concerns on behalf of our constituents as to what's going on and the things that we struggle with down here.
Yeah, I'll reach out tomorrow, maybe tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the audience that want to comment on this? Okay. Mr. Brandisi, Full Sail?
Can you pull it up on the screen? Good evening, Derek Bernizzi, Town Manager. Can you hear me? Try it again. Good evening, Derek Bernizzi, Town Manager. Just waiting for the map to come up on the screen. Yep. And could we slide that down so folks could see the parcels? Say again? There we go. Okay, we're good. So I'm here this evening to provide the Select Board and the community an update on the Full Sail acquisition. Just by a little bit of background, this request went to the October town meeting for the Select Board to acquire these 6 parcels for a community benefit. There were multiple public meetings, both at Town Hall and in the Full Sail, Taylor Ave, White Horse Beach area. Part of the public benefit that was proposed was to include things like benches and tables, ADA accessible ramp to the beach. This would be included on the parcels of 1, 2, and 3, which we all know there is currently a half burnt out structure on this property. That's been burnt out since, I want to say, the period of around 2016. The property owner has done nothing with this property since then. And then again, just to reiterate, so this is for all of a public benefit, to create access to the White Horse Beach area, both for those folks with disabilities and for the community at large. When you look at these parcels here, we have one shaded in green, and then the other 5 parcels are shaded in pink. So the 5 parcels shaded in pink are owned by the Fuccello family, and then the 1 parcel shaded in green is owned by the Adams family. Parcels 6 and 5 would slated to be a parking area for those folks that would want to go to the beach. Parcel 4 would be a walkway to get you to Taylor Ave, and then we would create a follow-up crosswalk so that folks could cross Taylor Ave safely, again, over to parcels 1, 2, and 3, which that would be the area where there would be plantings, benches and tables, and an ADA ramp, again, to access the sand. So I'm bringing this forward this evening because although a purchase and sale was executed in August, and then there was a subsequent vote by town meeting in October for the acquisition of this parcel, we quickly moved with trying to acquire this property. In fact, 3 days after the vote of town meeting, we had a conversation with Mr. Fuccello, again, the property owner of the 5 pink parcels. At that time, he had said that he did not want to sell the properties, although he had signed a written purchase and sale agreement. He did not want to sell those parcels to the town at the time. He was in dispute with Mr. Adams of parcel 6. So we spent the better part of the last 3 to 4 months entering conversations with Mr. Adams' attorney so that we could come to a mutual agreement. I'm happy to report that we have an agreement with the Adams family to acquire parcel 6 by what is known as a friendly eminent domain taking. And what that does is, we would agree on a sum of money through an eminent domain process, and the Adams family would sign a waiver of damages. That, in essence, what that means is they wouldn't be able to file a claim against the town to sue for damages, and what I mean by damages is money. So we would have an agreed upon price. They would sign off on that waiver, and then by doing it that way, it would, in essence, it would protect the Adams family for any claims by the Fuccello family. And so I'm here this evening to provide a board an update. My recommendation is to move forward with an eminent domain taking for the parcel 6 with the Adams family. Again, they're already in agreement to going that route. They think that's the cleanest route. And then I would recommend that we do a similar eminent domain taking with the Fuccello family for the remaining 5 parcels. And if the board were agree, I would recommend that we move forward as quickly as possible, and then we would bring forward at the February 25th Select Board meeting all of the eminent domain paperwork for execution.
Mr. Canty, Mr. Mahoney?
So, thank you, Mr. Brindisi, for the overview for the community's benefit. We did obviously have this on the executive, and at advice of counsel, the board is not going to get into this in any further detail tonight, but I think we're all in agreement that we want to move forward on the 25th. So, but thank you for the overview, and look forward to effectuating it as necessary on the 25th.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman, if you see fit, I completely agree that this should be an agenda item next Tuesday, February 25th.
Jay, does David also, he doesn't have his hand up, does he? Okay. Okay, then we'll,
Great.
next week. Anyone wishing to speak under public comment? Please come on up, state your name for the record, and speak close to the mic so we can hear you, please.
Good evening, Chairman and the board members. My name is Alice Baker. I am a resident and I live on Taylor Ave. I am also the chairman of the Minimet Village Steering Committee, and I am here to speak regarding the location of the full sale. First, I would like to speak about the overwhelming concerns from several meetings with the residents and neighbors who have concerns regarding speed from Taylor Ave and White Horse Road, especially from the turning at the bend where the set of flashing lights are. Many homes have been hit by vehicles, one of them alone over 25 times. We have tried to get crosswalks with the speed hump in the past to be at this location, and unfortunately, we were unable to do so. Crosswalks can only go from public to public properties, not from private to public. Now that the St. Charles parking lot will be for the 24-plus parking spots with parking stickers, we will have more foot traffic crossings along the footpath that will go directly across Taylor Ave to the new landing and access to the beach. With the traffic crossing, it becomes a safety issue. This area will have much more foot traffic than ever before. It would be beneficial for the town to install a new crosswalk, which I believe I heard, Derek say that that was going to happen, with the speed hump and proper signage, the same as the speed hump that is located down at the public entrance across the street from Hilltop, that is going right over to the White Horse Beach public entrance. This crosswalk with a hump and proper signage at the location of the new landing will reduce the speed at this problematic location. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me regarding an important public safety issue that will be better for this community and the safety of the public. And last, I just want to say, the residents are thrilled that this landing is going in. They're so thrilled with what you're doing with the full seal. Thank you for that. But when it comes to this public safety issue, that is a dangerous corner, turning that bend with the flash of lights there. We have been working with, a meeting with DPW Bill Coyle on several meetings about some of the problematic issues, especially on White Horse Road. Going through the minimum pressure zone, we're waiting for that to be completed, which they're doing an excellent job. And hopefully we'll have some more meetings regarding it, and also with the police department. They're aware of the speed that's going on down there. Both the police chief and DPW have been fantastic. I have to say that. They are very, if you reach out to them, they respond to us. They do everything that in their power that they can do to this point. And again, Bill Coyle, when we talked to him, we know that there are several issues up in the White Horse Road.
Ms. Baker, do you need a little more time?
Just 2 seconds.
Okay.
That deal with the proper signage and the speeding that come from the full seal going around that bend. So if we can add a speed hump to the crosswalk, that would be beneficial for that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing nobody? Oh, there we go. Only kidding. Come on up.
Good evening. I'm Troy Currents. I'm from the Heron Pond Wampanoag tribe. I'm the medicine man to the community there, highly interactive between Mashpee and Aquina. I'm here to discuss 71 Hedges Pond Road. I have a letter here from one of my relatives from Mashpee that I would read this to have it put into order on record. The Massachusetts Historical Commission listed the inventory of identified an ancient Indian burial ground less than a half a mile from the project proposed as 71 Hedges Pond Road. Given the proximity as well as the scale and scope of the proposed development, all ground disturbance activities must thoroughly be vetted by a qualified registered archaeologist. As a matter of due diligence, a full Phase 1 archaeological assessment, including a desktop review and an intensive locational survey, must be conducted across the entire project area. This is necessary to ensure no culturally sensitive or sacred sites are impacted during development of this project. Furthermore, the Mashpee Wampanoag, the Aquina Wampanoag Tribal Historic Preservation Officers must be included in all correspondence and developments related to the archaeological investigations for this site. This includes, but is not limited to, active monitoring of the investigations and excavations of the area. All associated costs shall be responsible of the property owner or the developer. I just need this put into record. David Reardon is the tribal council of the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe. He's a TIPO officer. His information's here. We'd like to enter that into evidence and that you guys consider that. We are one of the historic tribes as well, and we're backed by executive order by Governor Healy, and we work together as a nation with our sister tribes and our relatives from the Mashpee and the Quina Wampanoag tribes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Natasuis, Makaya Nutamas, Sequana Makapakwe, Wampanoag. Hello, my name is Makaya Stasis, and I come from the Herring Pond Wampanoag tribe, whose lands you currently reside on.
Yeah, speak closer to the mic just so we can hear you better. Thank you.
I stand here today to speak out against the destruction of 71 Hedges Pond Road, also known as the Great Lot, where my relatives have resided for generations. I am here not only to represent those in my family who are buried beneath the land, but also to speak for the voices that are often ignored, the four-legged, the winged, and our tree relatives whose homes are being destroyed. I'm not here just for my people, but the residents of Plymouth and the next 7 generations to come. Our homelands have been systematically dismantled since the arrival of settlers in 1620. You talk about economic development, but in reality, it's just a widespread destruction of ecosystems. We are meant to be stewards of this land, yet the town seems more concerned with filling their pockets and preserving what remains. The issue cannot be ignored any longer. We will not be silenced. We are the original stewards of this land, and we will continue to protect it for generations to come. Katapatanamu.
Thank you. Come on up.
Good evening. I'm Sybil Holland. I'm a town representative from Precinct 8. That's much better. I'd actually intended to say something different tonight, but just listening, I'm going to change what I'm going to say. I have no notes. A few weeks ago, you gentlemen discussed and voted on having limiting the number of polling places that we were going to have from 14 to 4. After that vote, your constituents, the residents of Plymouth, rose up, they wrote you, they called, they let you know that decision was unacceptable and asked you to consider, again, the number that we need in this town, and you did. And now we have 5. That was a very wise decision. I commend you for it. When it comes to 71 Hedges Pond Road, you have made a decision, and that decision has been very difficult for the residents of Cedarville and Ellisville and the First People, for reasons you know all too well. We've done everything we can to make you aware of them and aware of our feelings. I'm not myself on Facebook, but I do know that you are aware, I'm sure, of how upset we are because of your decision impacting in a permanent way our lifestyle and the environment. Tonight I call on you, if I can have your attention. I don't intend to be humorous here. I would appreciate your attention. Thank you.
You have my attention, and I wasn't being humorous. I was asking him a question.
I can tell you amused Mr. Canty. That's why I mentioned it.
Okay, well, it wasn't.
I very seriously want to call on you tonight to channel that same wisdom you showed and to revisit your decision where Herring Pond Road, 71 Herring Pond Road is concerned. You can measure twice, but only cut once. There is nothing lost in your pausing and considering the consequences which cannot be undone. You are wise men. You have been elected to represent us. We count on you to protect us. Please do not let us down.
Now, Mr. Canty, we usually don't respond, but we're going to in this case, and that's what I was talking to Mr. Canty about. Mr. Canty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as we've had the town manager explain at a couple of the other meetings where this has come up in public comment, the issuance of or the appeal of a building permit is outside the scope of the select board's responsibilities and abilities to control. There is an appeals process that can be effectuated by people that have an issue with a building permit or a project. There are other means and avenues, but the select board is not, it never was, and still continues to be, not within our jurisdiction to control that in any way, directly or indirectly. We've tried to communicate that previously at other meetings. Obviously, we keep receiving feedback on this particular topic. We just want to make it clear to people at home that this is not something that this board can do anything about. Even if we wanted to do something about it, it is beyond our ability to control it in any way. Thank you.
As long as you're respectful, why not?
I don't actually see what's funny about that, but I'm well aware of that. But I'm also aware of the fact that you gentlemen don't live in a bubble. You are representing our government, as do other people whom you have appointed to the zoning board, appeals board. You talk to them, they're influenced by what you say, by your opinions, by your discussion. Our reaching out to you and speaking to you where you may not actually be able to consider the vote, you can consider your personal opinions, and you can consider your recommendations. And in that vein, I appeal to you.
And I'm just going to add to that we appoint the zoning board of appeals, and it's very unethical for us to call, and I've never in 20 years made a call to any board of appeals member and told them how to vote. So I'm sorry if you don't like the answer we're giving you, but I want everybody, and the reason I asked Mr. Canty to clear the air is because you get the wrong information. It's not for this board to deny any permit. That horse left the barn on February, I believe it was 7th. It was the deal that went to town meeting, which I think you said you're a town meeting representative. That's where this land got to the foundation. And maybe you weren't there, and this is the end of this debate. But so you know, that's how this happened. It wasn't this board.
I understand. May I ask you one further
Okay.
question, just as a question concerning transparency? In 2018, when the town meeting voted...
I wasn't here,
I wasn't either, which is why I'm asking.
so I can't answer
In
your question.
2018, but perhaps other people in the select board would be able to. In 2018, when the town meeting voted to change the zoning, was the town meeting aware that the potential buyer of this land might dig up the sand that was there? Did they understand when they said, sure, we'll change the zoning, that it potentially could be sold to someone who would wipe out the forest, chop down all the trees, and take up all the sand? Yes. They said, okay, that's fine with us, we can do that? So did Mr. Pontiff, did we sell the land to Mr. Pontiff knowing that he was going to take the sand and dig it up? Did we know that as we sold it to him?
Well, I can tell you this. Out of the whole parcel, 134 acres went into conservation.
I know
And I
that.
think it's 34 acres. Let's be polite now. Don't attack me.
I'm not.
Be nice. I believe it was 34 or 37 acres that they're actually developing.
Right.
When they applied for the permit, Mr. Pontiff wanted to remove 350 yards, I believe it was.
So-
And
So we knew at the time. he
it was
gonna-
changed down to 170.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
we
Yes,
did know
Mr.
that.
Golden.
This has gone well beyond the scope of public comment. I would ask that if the person is aggrieved by the decision of the building commissioner to issue a permit, that she should avail herself of the process that Mr. Canty described tonight with the ZBA. Thank you.
I'm
Thank
sorry, I
you.
couldn't understand it, but I did hear he said this is beyond the realm of public comment, so thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on the public comment, please come up. Thank you, Mr. Golden.
Thank you. Thank you for taking my comment. My name is Catherine Harrelson, and I'm with Community Land and Water Coalition, a Plymouth-based nonprofit organization. On February 14th, Community Land and Water Coalition, on behalf of its members and its volunteers, filed a demand for enforcement, cease and desist, against Standish Investment Group, LLC, Eric Pontiff, contractor, Ryko Excavating, Inc., the Plymouth Regional Economic Development Foundation, Inc., for the location at 71 Hedges Pond in Plymouth, Massachusetts. This demand for enforcement, cease and desist, was addressed to Jason Silva, Director of Inspectional Services, Town of Plymouth. I won't read the whole thing, but I will summarize. Dear Mr. Silva, this is a demand for immediate enforcement of the Plymouth zoning bylaw against Standish Investment, Eric Pontiff, Ryko Excavating, and the Plymouth Regional Economic Development Foundation. And I'll summarize below. This is a demand that you issue a cease and desist against the violators to immediately stop all land alteration activities on the site, including land clearing, grading, tree removal, cutting, removal of vegetation, or any other land disturbance called work. The work is occurring in violation of local, state, and federal laws. It is documented by the photograph below, dated February 14th, 2025. A cease and desist order is necessary to prevent the destruction of ancestral lands of the Wampanoag people, as described in the attached letter to the chair of the Plymouth Planning Board, which has been also delivered to the Select Board as well. The work is destroying the ancestral lands and heritage of the Wampanoag tribes, including destroying potential burial sites, graves, home sites, without an archaeological study, without their free and prior informed consent, and in violation of Article 32 of the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People, the laws of Massachusetts, and the zoning bylaw. The cease and desist order is also necessary to prevent continued violations of the zoning bylaw. We ask you here tonight to intervene. We know that our demand is not going to be answered. We ask you here tonight to intervene on behalf of the community, on behalf of the Wampanoag people who are here tonight, on behalf of the greater, larger Plymouth community, to talk to Jason Silva, Director of Inspectional Services, and ask him to reinstate a cease and desist on the site. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak under public comment?
Evan Malaguti, Vice Chair of the Energy Committee. While I could have spoke earlier during the other issue on the agenda, I felt it was better to do it under public comment and not take away from anything. So one of the things that you brought up, Mr. Chairman, about the municipal light plants. So the Energy Committee was actually formed for the actual purpose of investigating about the town actually forming its own municipal light plant. That is still a long-range proposal for the Energy Committee to keep looking at and investigating along with our other goals and targets. But along with that too, if we did become a municipal light plant and it was efficient enough financially for us to do that, we would also recoup the fees that we pay on our electricity bills for the Energy Efficiency Fund. Those we could use to either use as a third party or use as ourselves to create our own efficiency program, which could actually be a lot more incentivizing for reducing costs for energy efficiency improvements than what MassSave does currently, similar to what Cape Lake Compact does and did. So that's one avenue that could be looked at in the future for this. The other as well, too, is that the rates for the municipal aggregation that we have of the 14 cents when our previous one was around 9 cents. The difference for that, not just because of the electricity market too, our last plan did not include a 100% renewable component to it. This one does, which unfortunately fortunately and unfortunately added to the cost for this cycle. And that could be something that the town manager as well as Mike and yourselves could discuss, and if you want to continue with 100% renewable for it or not, depending on how the county and us decide in the future how a plan would go for this. The Energy Committee is fully vested in not just reducing costs for the town, but also reducing costs for the residents themselves. So I open myself for anyone in the public that wants to ask me any questions, as well as cooperating and collaborating with Mr. Cahill, our liaison to the committee, and Michelle Badger and the rest of the delegation as well too, for anything that could be necessary and also helpful, that each party may have different information that we could work and share collaboratively to reduce, but also relieve the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Meg
Welcome.
Sheehan from Community Land and Water Coalition, and before I begin my 3 minutes, I just want to correct for the record that with regard to appearing before the Zoning Board of Appeals to help influence their decisions, in 2022, it's recorded on YouTube, Mr. Blutzer and Mr. Quintal got up in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Planning Board and urged them to approve the sand and gravel mining operation on Route 3. So that's available, and I just want to correct the record. I'm here to comment on the agenda item that you kind of swept under the rug to authorize the acceptance of $2 million under administrative notes. You accepted $2 million from the Plymouth Foundation, allegedly for traffic improvements in Cedarville. And I would like to note that last meeting, Mr. Brindisi indicated that he had already signed a contract to spend that $2 million. And I'd like to comment on that $2 million. Is that $2 million ceremonial check that was presented at the last board meeting by the Plymouth Foundation on February 11th a sleight of hand? Isn't it really just reimbursement to the town for the almost $2 million that the taxpayers have already paid to the foundation for services? Since 2014, the town has paid the foundation $1.8 million, $125 million annually, to support the foundation's activities. The foundation's primary mission is to locate land for commercial development, according to a quote in Invest Plymouth magazine. At its February 11th meeting, the Select Board increased the annual payment to the foundation to $152,000. This will bring the total paid to the foundation to almost $2 million soon. So in the end, that $2 million ceremonial check is simply reimbursing the taxpayers for the ongoing payments made by this town to the foundation since 2014. At the February 11th meeting, the Select Board vaguely alluded to a memorandum of understanding between the town and the foundation. It didn't disclose that it was voting to increase the payment to $152,000, and didn't even really indicate what you were voting on. The foundation claims it's a nonprofit charity. It has $2.3 million in its checkbook. That's before the sale of 71 Hedges Pond Road to Eric Pontiff. Does the foundation really need taxpayer money? Why don't other nonprofits in the town get annual donations from the Select Board to support their activities? Veterans, arts, youth programs, etc. The $2 million payment came from the sale of that land to a sand mine operator of what was once
Ms.
conservation
Sheehan,
land.
how much more time do you need?
I have about a few more sentences.
Okay.
With the help of the Town Planning Board, whose department head is on the foundation board, the foundation located 34 acres at 71 Hedges Pond Road for commercial development. Records show the planning board funneled the land through town meeting and into the hands of the foundation for $1, 33 acres. The land is slated for sand mining under the claim of another vague, unified complex of commercial buildings, just like the one that we see on Route 3 that has been a sand pit for 4 years now. That unified complex is an ongoing sand and gravel mining operation generating no revenue from the alleged manufacturing building approved by the planning board in 2022. Why don't they build that unified complex before destroying another 34 acres under the pretense of generating tax revenue. E.J. Pontiff, the Duxbury-based developer.
Ms. Ian, you
I
said a
have-
couple of sentences, it's been a minute.
I'm almost done. This is my
All
last
right.
sentence. E.J. Pontiff, the Duxbury-based developer of 71 Hedges Pond Road, has dangled hockey rinks in order to entice the public. Is that just more smoke and mirrors like the ceremonial check for $2 million?
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on a public comment? Anyone online, Jade? Hello, can you hear us? He's got the hand up. Yeah. Is it a Lori, Jade? Laurie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, there you go. Just
Hi,
state your name for
folks.
the record, please.
Okay. My name is Lori Bradley. I'm sorry, my face isn't there. I don't know how to change that. But I'm from New Bedford, frequent visitor to Plymouth, and I'm just also commenting from the letter that I wrote to the Plymouth Independent about 71 Hedges Pond Road. And I just wanted to say, I think there's an irony here. My husband and I attended a dinner at the Plymouth Pawtuxet Museum this year, as we do every year. The evening focused on the cooperation and generosity of the Wampanoag people towards the early settlers. So we were wondering, how can the Plymouth Pawtuxet Museum be praised for recreating a Wampanoag home site while just down the road, an actual Wampanoag site, possibly containing the graves of their ancestors, is about to be bulldozed for corporate profit? When will we recognize that history cannot simply be confined to museums while the land it belongs to is systematically destroyed? Must every remnant of cultural and natural history be relegated to a small, curated space surrounded by an endless sea of suburban sprawl and sand mines? Many members of the public have called for a pause on the building permit until a full archaeological study is conducted. This really isn't a radical request. It's the bare minimum of the respect we owe to the original stewards of this land. But why not stop at a pause? In the spirit of the very cooperation, the museum and we celebrate each Thanksgiving, why not reverse the decision entirely? Preserve this land would be a significant legacy for Plymouth, one that respects history rather than erasing it under yet another concrete slab or flattening it for a sand mine. Thank you for letting me comment, and I appreciate the public comment that you have.
Thank you. Jade, is there anyone else on?
Good evening. Thank you so much to the Select Board for the opportunity to provide public comment. My name is Isabella Gamble, and all comments offered tonight are solely my own. I want to fully support and uplift the comments generously offered by Herring Pond Wampanoag tribal members tonight, as well as the members and relatives that offered their comments at the last Select Board meeting, with the reasonable request for an archaeological study to be done at 71 Hedges Pond Road in Cedarville. In addition to supporting their reasonable request, I also want to offer a request as someone who works at the intersection of climate and public health. I am deeply concerned about the impact of airborne silica dust on surrounding communities in Cedarville and Plymouth County. Silica dust is a known carcinogen that once it comes into our bodies, it literally causes cancer. And yet there has not been a public health study done on the increasing silica dust being made airborne by sand mining projects in Plymouth. We have neighbors who have pictures of silica dust residue on their cars, on buildings, on sidewalks. We know our neighbors and kids are inhaling that same silica dust. I formally request the Select Board to commission a public health study on the impacts of airborne silica dust on surrounding communities, with particular focus to the public health impacts of silica dust on people living with respiratory illnesses and populations working and/or living outside. Please, as someone who is a caregiver for a father with 2 kinds of cancer who has been living in Plymouth for 40 years, I am deeply concerned that these projects are making my family sicker, as well as potentially impacting your neighbors, your families, and your kids. Please commission a public health study on the impact of silica dust on our surrounding communities from sand mining. Thank you.
Anyone else, Jade? One more? Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, identify yourself for the record.
My name is Rachel Atkins. I would like to read into the record a letter from Melissa Ferretti, the chairwoman of the Herring Pond Wampanoag Tribe. Dear Mr. Quintal, members of the Select Board, Mr. Bolton, members of the Planning Board, and Building Commissioner. We are writing to express our deep concerns regarding the proposed commercial development on the 33-acre site known as 71 Hedges Pond Road in Plymouth. This site lies at the heart of the Wampanoag homelands and holds profound historical and cultural significance. Our historical reservation lands post-allotment, which previously contained 3 separate parcels, mostly in Plymouth but partly in Bourne, which in total was 3,000 plus or minus acres, namely the Great Lot, about 2,600 acres, the Meeting House, about 200 acres, and the Herring River Lot, known to the tribe as the 21st century as the Valley, which is about 400 acres. This parcel was set aside for the tribe in the 1600s and was part of the original reservation lands of the Herring Pond Wampanoag tribe, known as the Great Lot. We strongly oppose the development as proposed by E.J. Pontiff Standish Investment Group. The site plans dated July 30th, 2023 by Flaherty and Stefani indicate an extensive evacuation starting from the top of a 150-foot hill and digging approximately 90 feet deep across a 33-acre site. This plan would result in a 30-acre excavation with steep 90-foot slopes. Additionally, the developer's letter dated July 10, 2024 mentions a, quote, disturbance of about 30 acres, including the removal of 350,000 cubic yards of sand and gravel. Laws and policies give us Indigenous people an inherent right to be not only be consulted when human activities harm our ancestral lands and heritage. Under these state and federal laws, Indigenous people have the right to free, prior, and informed consent on territories and resources which they have traditionally owned, occupied, or otherwise used or acquired. So we call upon you to adhere to the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, known as UNDRIP, which was endorsed by the U.S. State Department in 2010. Article 32, number 1, Indigenous people have the right to determine and develop priorities and strategies for the development or use of their lands or territories and other resources. 2, states shall consult and cooperate in good faith with the Indigenous peoples concerned through their own representative institutions in order to obtain their free and informed consent prior to the approval of any project affecting their lands or territories.
Anyone else wishing to speak under public comment? If you don't answer me, yeah, I will. And after this meeting here, any letters to the board can come through the board to the selectman's office. And after that, we're not going to read the same letter repeatedly. It's not a good use of time. So there you have it. Anyone else wishing to speak under public comment? Mr. Brandisi, Town Manager's report, please.
Okay, I only have a few things to report tonight, but let me start by talking about the $2 million. As the board voted tonight to now deposit that $2 million, which is real cash, into a special purpose account for the design of traffic mitigation options for both the Herring Pond Road intersection and the Hedges Pond Road intersection. That I did mention last week that I was looking at about $1.2 million worth of design costs. Given some of the complications that we are expecting at the Hedges Pond Road intersection, that design cost could balloon up to $1.8 million. So we're not certain yet. We're going to be working with the engineering team on the full cost of the design. Once we get to 25% design, we will then move those designs forward to be put on the state TIP program. And as I reported in the past, the state TIP project would fully fund the construction of those two intersections. So more to come on that. It's going to take years to get there. It's going to probably take a couple years to complete the design, and then it usually take a few years after that for the construction to begin. So we're projecting at this point 6 years before we could remedy those two intersections down in Cedarville. But again, that is going to be paid for by the $2 million that came from the sale of 71 Hedges Pond Road. And then just a couple of quick notes. The footbridge over at Jenny Pond, the footings have been poured, the spillway has been cleared. So we are moving, although we've had some tough last couple of weeks with the weather, we still move forward with that project, and we're expecting that project to be completed on time. And the other last item I wanted to bring up this morning is, as you know, for a long time now, not even the recent past, but we've always struggled with some of our ponds, in particular Morton Park and Fresh Pond, with some of the overcrowding, especially on very hot Sundays during the summer months. And what has happened over the time is that we would react to those concerns and some of the overcrowding, and then we would apply resources there, both parks resources, law enforcement resources, and it would mitigate those concerns. And then this whack-a-mole phenomenon would take place, and these same concerns would pop up in another park or even a beach at sometimes. So under the leadership of Commissioner Brady, working with the police chief and others, they've been meeting on a regular basis to put together a comprehensive park management plan for all of our ponds and all of our beaches. Next week, so that continues to move forward. Next week, we'll be inviting members from our Natural Resources and Coastal Beaches Committee as well to be a part of that conversation so that we can have their input. And then towards the end, we'll be working with some of the neighbors in each one of these areas so that we can get community input as well. And then layered on top of that, we are working with Bridgewater State, one of their senior capstone projects. And what they will be doing is a financial analysis on what the true costs are to run all of our beaches and ponds over the course of the summer months. That financial analysis certainly will drive some of our future decision-making as far as what ponds to keep operating and what the length of time should be for each one of those ponds and beaches. So more to come on that, but I wanted to report out, I'm hoping to have at least a draft report sometime in mid-April. We certainly expect this park management plan to be complete for the beginning of our tourist season, which starts right around Memorial Day. So pending any questions, that's all I have for this evening.
Any questions for the town manager or comments? Mr. Mahoney.
Mr. Brindisi, so picking up on 71 Hedges Pond, I believe that proposal was multiple articles at town meeting. So through the chair, I would request that if we could get the dates from Mr. Hartman, he'll probably know when they went to town meeting, and then through the town clerk, could we get a copy of each individual vote associated with 1, 2, or 3 of those articles on this piece of property, and the roster of town meeting members who were present at the time and what their vote was? And no hurry on that. I don't need it tomorrow, but in the next week or two, I'd love to have that information to the board.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
I'm all set with it, John, but you can gladly have Derek dig it out for you. Anything else for the town manager? New business? Mr. Canty.
Given the tendency over the last 6 weeks or so for our public comment section to be dominated primarily by content that, as we've repeatedly tried to describe as being outside of our jurisdiction and control, we do not have the ability to pause, intervene, or otherwise control a building permit. I know we have in our rules a 3-minute speaking time that we often voluntarily extend as a courtesy to residents. But given that at some of these meetings, upwards of 30 minutes is being spent on things that have nothing to do with anything we can do anything about, I would suggest that perhaps, at least for a time going forward, we restrict public comment duration to 3 minutes and require a vote of the board to give more time, to discourage time being wasted on subjects. And I think, candidly, it is a deliberate attempt to discredit this community and this board by trying to make it seem to residents that we can do something about this when we cannot do something about this, and there is a legitimate appeals process that can be pursued. And I think it is distracting from all the other things that this board is doing and all the other areas of focus that we have within our control to try and improve this community. I do appreciate the public's input, and I do value the public's comment about things, but when it gets to the point where it's been 5 or 6 weeks of 20 to 30 minutes of things that have nothing to do with us and the same comments over and over again, despite us explaining multiple times that we cannot do anything about this, I would suggest that we cannot regulate the content of public comment, but we can regulate the time frame. And I think we're being taken advantage of by being as kind as we've been and as generous as we've been with the time we're allowing some of these people to discredit us for reasons that are beyond our ability to control. So that's just my opinion. I would like it to be temporary, that we don't extend people's time without a vote, because I think generally there's a value. But because it's being weaponized against us in the way that it is, in a way that I think is unfair and unjustified and misleading to the general public, that would be my suggestion.
Mr. Blatzer?
I have a question, Derek, if you know. How long, we've owned that land for how long on 71 Hedges?
How long has the town owned that land?
Yeah, forever, right?
I would, for a very long time.
So how long has it been since we've put it out for sale?
Well, as Mr. Mahoney pointed out, the town meeting took action 2018 to preserve 130 acres of that property. They also took action to set aside approximately 50 acres, which is now what we're considering 71 Hedges Pond Road, for commercial development. And then they took a third action to rezone that area for commercial use. So at least until 2018, everyone in this community has known what the purpose of that land was going to be.
So for 7 years, is anybody from the Wampanoag tribe come and ask to have a archaeologist study on that land?
I can tell you since 2022, the answer to that question is no.
Because I mean, it's just, I'm just hearing about recently, and
that land was not in conservation
interrupt you
effective
when you spoke, sir.
2018. That land was pulled out of conservation in 2018, part of an agreement with town meeting that 130 acres would be preserved and 50 acres would be set aside. So it's not, it hasn't been in conservation. That's not true.
I guess what I'm asking is, all this time, I mean, now it's ready to be some commercial development going in there, and I just don't know if this is a delay tactic. I don't know if it's a delay tactic, but they're just coming forward now, so.
Okay.
So that's all. I mean, you know, it just, I'm hearing about this now. I didn't hear about this 4 years ago. I've been a select
I would
board
agree
member
with
for
that,
4
right.
years, so, and this is the first I'm hearing about it, so. So anyway, that's, but we've known it's gonna be developed for years, so anyway, thank you, Mr. Town Manager, thank you for that. You have my answer, thank you.
Anything else under new business? I have to say, I'm seriously considering your thoughts, Mr. Canty. There's also another thought where we can remove public comment and have a selectman of choice come in each week before the meeting for a half hour, an hour, and meet with anybody's concerns. So, we'll try your way first, but there's always the second, too. And I've never, in 20 years being a selectman, have had issues with people speaking under public comment, but this is just a little, every week and the same thing, and, you make your point, and I understand that. But, I don't need to hear it 10 times in one night, every night. As far as I know, my hearing's pretty good, so. Anything on the letters? Old business? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Canty, second by Mr. Blitzer. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.